cold plunging. Oh my gosh, I love it. And this is kind of ironic because for most of my life, I have really, really hated being cold. I'm originally from Michigan and I never want to live there again because I really hate being cold. And the winter, like I think today it is -5 in the town I'm from, and that is not fun. However, a couple years ago, I was listening to Huberman Labs, laying on the beach in Florida, and I was listening to this podcast with Suzanne Søberg, who is an amazing researcher in the study of contrast therapy for your body. So hot, cold. And I told my husband, hey, when we get back to Washington, I'm going to start cold plunging. And he laughed because the ocean there is like 70 something and I did not really want to get into it. I was like, no, I'm totally going to do this. And so I came back and I realized I probably didn't want to go down to the ocean because then I have to get out and then I'm cold in my car and that just seemed miserable. So we could have put a cold plunge in the clinic, and I do actually cold plunge every day now and sauna. We have an infrared sauna as well. And so this is the study or the Huberman podcast that cites the study, and he interviewed Suzanne Søberg. And I leave this in the cold plunge room because it is such an amazing, just like really information dense, as most Huberman Lab podcasts are, where she talks about the science behind cold and hot therapy. And so what she was looking at was really primarily heart disease. And what they found was 11 minutes of cold exposure a week, 57 minutes of sauna, remarkably reduced your risk of heart disease. And so I thought that was pretty amazing. And then other things that it does, even a minute of cold exposure is going to increase serotonin and dopamine. So for me, I have a terrible ADD. I will squirrel around all day long looking for sources of dopamine. And so I find that if I cold plunge first thing in the morning, I am able to get through the day. I can sit down and do my charts. I do all the things that I need to get done in the day without looking for those little nuggets of dopamine all over the place. In addition, there's a lot of science with body composition. With cold plunge, when you're doing it, you're really reducing inflammation like right away. So there's some things to be cautious of here. If you go and you do like heavy weights, you don't want to cold plunge immediately afterwards because part of the way that you grow muscle is by inflammation. So you lift a lot of weights and then you have some inflammation, your muscles are being torn down and then rebuilt, and that's an inflammatory process. You want that. So if you lift heavy and hop right in a cold plunge, you're going to stop that process. So you got the benefits, of lifting heavy for your bones and all of that, but you're not going to get the bigger muscles that you may be looking for. So then we're just talking about timing. So do you do a cold plunge after? You cold plunge 6 hours after? Looking at what are you doing specifically, and that's where it's always good to get some guidance for, with like a sports medicine professional, like this is what they do if you're very serious about your body composition. But for most of us who just want to be healthy and get to our best version of ourselves, one of the things that cold plunging is amazing for is if you let your body heat itself up. So you get out of the cold plunge, you're cold, your body has to get to work heating everything back up, and that burns calories. So one of the really interesting things that cold plunging does is it moves your white fat, which is just kind of hanging around doing nothing fat, storage fat, and it uses it for energy, and it actually increases your stores of brown fat. When we are born, babies have lots and lots of brown fat. It's very metabolically active. That's why babies don't usually shiver, because they're warm. They kind of stay at one temperature all the time. And then as we age, we lose that brown fat until we have very just minuscule amounts of it in our body. Cold plunging can change that. You can get that brown fat back, and it's brown because it actually has mitochondria in it. Mitochondria are like the energy centers of our body. So you have this very metabolic, active brown fat that is actually burning calories at rest, which is pretty amazing. So if you let yourself warm up, this can be a great part of your body composition journey. Really cutting off the fat and turning it into something really useful that you're going to want later in life or even later that day. With everything, moderation, being sensible about it. 11 minutes a week is not 11 minutes at one time. I do 2 minutes. I think a minute, 2 minutes something like that, where you're spreading it over the week, is much more sensible. When you start staying in cold water for extended periods, then, you can get hypothermia, which is not a great thing for you. We don't want you to warm up that much. And then the same with heat. So the 57 minutes a week, a lot of people will easily do more than that, and that's fine. But again, with heat, you need to be really cautious with it. Don't not hydrate and hop in a sauna for 2 hours. Like, that's just not a good idea. And I think that's pretty sensible. I think most people know that already. But when it comes to cold, people have much more of a kind of like a Spartan attitude, where like, the more I can endure, the better the benefit. And that just really isn't necessarily the case. So don't make yourself crazy. And also, when we set these kind of extreme goals for ourselves, often then it'll end up not happening, because that's difficult. It's difficult to commit to anything that is going to require hours of really uncomfortable things. So if you're going to cold plunge, or you're going to get in the ocean, or you're going to cold shower, or whatever it is you're going to do, really be sensible about the protocol for it. Make sure you have the time for it. Make sure that it's the right time of day, given the activities that you've done, and that you're getting the very best benefits of it. Look at some of the science. There is a lot of science out there now about alternating heat-cold therapies, and it's just really fascinating. If you have any comments, questions, want to come in and check out our cold plunge, want a tour, I will be happy to answer those, show you that, and get you on your journey to contrast therapy.